thank you so much for joining me, Karen. I appreciate your time. You've
Thank
just
you.
come back from Brazil.
I have. Thank you.
Your
Yes.
world premiere
Yes.
of your
Yes.
latest feature film, Armageddon Road. How did it go?
I think it went really well. We had a really warm reception and some really nice critical reviews as well. So yeah, the audience was really engaged and the festival's so well run. So yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah, so you're the perfect guest for me on this podcast because you originate with horror, really, don't you? Like you've sort of mastered that genre. You've won awards in horror,
Yeah,
but
I wouldn't say mastered, but yes, I've worked in the genre for a long time.
but you've also directed the latest addition to the Bring It On franchise, which I've previously mentioned on this podcast, and it was a good reference point for me making a cheerleading film. So how did that come about? And obviously, it's something different to the franchise.
Very. They actually, it's funny because I was teaching one of the screenwriting, like producing labs for the Whistler Film Festival. It was during COVID days, and we know we were all shut down and back on Zoom now, but it was pretty exhausting. And my agent sent over a script and she said it was a cheerleader horror. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm so tired. It was 6 hours a day on Zoom. And I said, I don't have time to read it till this afternoon, the weekend. And yeah, and I didn't know what it was. Actually, I feel terrible. I didn't know what Bring It On was. And I literally read the original title was Bring It On Halloween. And I thought, well, that's not a great title. Bring it on Halloween, right? And so yeah, and I when I read it, I was like, I'm not a cheerleader. I do horror. I mean, it's fun. It's like a girl slasher film. And at the time, they handed me a script that was actually pretty R-rated, so it was really like really violent kills. And I remember thinking that's really not my style. It's not what I do. And the producers wanted to talk to me from LA, and I think I hadn't clued in. I have a terrible habit of reading the top line of my email and not reading further. So I am the worst for my poor agent who sends me things. I read her, take a look at the script, and then I go no further than that. Then I bounce down to the script and I read that. Had I known, I would have seen that it was from NBC Universal. I would have been more nervous about the whole thing. I would have taken it seriously rather than some person wants me to do like a cheerleader horror film. So, again, my ignorance is bliss. And so I talked to the producer. He asked, what issues I had with the script, and I basically, I made some script notes. I'm a writer as well. And he said, "Great. Well, we want to interview you." And I thought this was the interview. And next thing I know, I get this invite from NBC Universal. That's when I discovered what it was. And the thing he did tell me to do was, "Could you please watch at least the first Bring It On?" I said, "Oh, it's a thing." He said, "Yes, just go watch the film." So then I watched it. I fall in love with, like, I loved the first Bring It On. And I remember then thinking, "Oh crap, this is part of a big." Then I started digging, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh no, you're in trouble now, girl." So I I went on the Zoom meeting, and I think I had to tell them first and foremost, I'm not a cheerleader. I'm a marching band dork, right? So in high school I was a French hornist in marching band, and I said I'm not a cheerleader. I know I'm Canadian as well, so cheer wasn't a big thing for us. It's much more American. And so, but I said that if I did get the job, I would throw my heart and soul into learning everything I could about cheer in like from then. And then I did write about uncredited about 8 drafts of the script, just because it was an R-rated script, and ultimately it was a PG-13 film. So I really had to make a lot of changes to it.
Yeah, like so you didn't write it exactly, but what were some of your ideas in there? Because the mascot being the sort of evil was kind of a great idea because you never know who's actually under that costume, and I just thought that was
No.
kind of a great idea.
Yeah, and so originally with the mascot was always in there as the baddie, and there was always like I think, at least by the time I got the script, that was there. But designing it, I think they really just had like a person in makeup, and I thought, oh no, that, like, you're going to be able to see who it is. And I had this idea of the Teletubbies, like I kind of had this idea of there's something about the roundness of them, with their bellies and stuff. And so that's where I started with, and I was working with my costume designer, and also my production designer. The two of them, we just started because there was nothing in the budget that was for a mascot creation because they just thought it would be a person in makeup. And I thought, you can't, it won't work with like just a mask or makeup. Like it needed a full mascot out. Like, and of
Yeah.
course, mascots are really hard. I mean, people spend $30,000, $40,000 or more if you really wanted a good team mascot, and that was not in the budget at all. So yeah, so then once I decided that he should be furry, and it should be a devil, but it should be like a furry, fuzzy, like Teletubby like thing, because there's nothing like being chased down a hallway by essentially a rolling, Care Bear. That's what.
So I mean, with all the Bring It On films, like the end credits, you sort of see some outtakes or the making of the film. I thought it was really cool to see like the cheerleaders rehearsing, I believe.
Yeah.
How fun was it to like get into cheerleading for the first time and just learn everything about it?
It was really inspiring. I ended up for my research. I ended up watching at that point it was only the first season of Cheer. So on
Oh yeah,
Netflix, I
yeah,
watched
yeah.
that, and then I was deep diving into everything from Pinterest to just Cheer Camp, like watching a lot of videos on YouTube. It was a huge and apparently a lot of the directors that had done the earlier Bring It On movies hadn't gone to cheer camp. So I made a point of going every afternoon. Those cheerleaders practiced for 3 weeks solid. And we were filming in Winnipeg in Canada. It's in the middle part of Canada. And what was interesting was that my condo that they rented for me was across the street from the hotel where all the cheerleaders were. And it was pandemic days. And so, of course, when you're inside your mask, but outside everyone was just sort of like mask free. And I could see every day I'd walk out and there'd be pyramids, happening on the lawn outside. And
Oh,
so they were
cool.
practicing nonstop. But oh God, we had like these incredible auditions. And then it was 3 solid weeks of just getting everybody those cheer routines. I know they're very cut up in the film, but they have a like real choreography that actually has to go all the way through. So even though by the time we film it, you're kind of like doing all the exciting sides, and sometimes you don't see the full routine, but they were all full cheer routines that actually were. So I think there was four because there was two for the Green Knights and two for the
Yeah.
the Diablos. So
So it's a massive cast as well, isn't it, of cheerleaders? Like
yeah, I've
really,
never worked.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think that was the biggest thing going from indie filmmaking to all of a
Mm.
sudden you've got nine main cast. That's a lot of people to basically. You did it too,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. Like it's just that's a lot of people. That's a lot of coverage to get. So
I mean, for my routine, I kind of took the Bring It On routine a bit and like just the rhythm with the music. I was gonna go on to like my team name in the film is the Ravens, and I find it really cool to watch your short films to prepare for this interview and see that you open your films with like these ravens, just to set the mood. I think like I just wanted to ask like how important was it for you to sort of set the mood straight from the off with the films Doll Parts and The Stolen. They
mhm.
have like this sort of ravens in the background. I thought it sort of sets the mood.
Yeah, and also it's very much a part of kind of this area in BC where I live. The crows are there, the ravens are there, and they always seem like harbingers of something not great.
Well, I
No,
actually got Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. The bird is a symbol of dark, tormenting memory. Um,
is that where you came from too with yours, or
I
is that
think that
why?
was what I looked up. I was like trying to think for a team name, and I was like, the Ravens just something dark about them, and kind of yeah. But
Hmm.
going to like your
And
horror, how do you achieve that unsettling mood that you were having like the meeting as well? I just found that like you can make a film, but there's sort of like a atmosphere that you want to achieve. Is it the sound effects? Is it the color grade? And like, how did you achieve like just having the audience on the edge of the seat?
no, thank you. There is a lot of sound design, of course, but also I think it's almost like you hear the movie in your head, when you're doing it, and so there is the tone. Unfortunately, in my head might be a little bit dark, so that might be my rhythm. Yeah, it is definitely that. I think that horror has a lot of. It almost needs that room to breathe for something to be uncomfortable. Like you're finding the frame, but you're also finding that it's a little slower actually than comedy. Comedy's a little faster in how you cut. Whereas I think in horror, it's like allowing the frame to breathe and then for something uncomfortable to happen. And so it's
Yeah.
probably, it's a pacing for sure.
Yeah, I found like the actors were kind of like pausing and just letting it kind of like sit with the audience. And um, yeah, you mentioned comedy there. I know that you're a fan of comedy, but you don't want to mix the two together.
I don't mix
What's
it
the,
too much. Although, Bring It On is the closest. And maybe in
yeah.
Armageddon Road has a lot of, it's a dark comedy by comparison. So I think I'm leaning into, I'm in a funny stage of my career, I think. It's funny because actually that was one of the things that almost lost me the job at NBC Universal. They said, "Well, you're funny. Your films are not funny," and I said, actually, what clinched it apparently was when I said, "Well, cheerleaders are inherently a little bit campy." I said, "I don't see any pom poms happening in the Seventh Seal," so they kind of that worked for them. So
I mean, one of my questions because I want to learn more about horror and like achieving that vibe with it.
mhm.
Like, what do you say to the actors? Because like I'm sure that they're good people, but how do you, when they're kind of portraying like a murderer or like a bad person, what do you say to them like for them to get into character?
A lot of it is what they bring to the table. I think I come with my own reputation, so I think they always try to even, and I always have to bring them back. A character in a horror film doesn't know that they're in a horror film. I was thinking, like, you thought your life was going great. We know you are in a horror film, right? Like, I feel like sometimes, like, and I always think too, if I were a murderer, I actually don't know that I think I'm a baddie.
Hmm.
Like I did spend I spent a year in true crime doing I was a series director for a series called Very Bad Men, and it was true crime investigations and that. And I got to look at a lot of footage of serial killers and you just basically really and interviews with criminologists and that when I was doing the research on it. And I would say that most of the murderers that were on, even in death row, I don't think that they thought that they were I mean, the unfortunate thing is that they got caught, right? But they themselves can be quite wry and quite funny about what they are. They're not Hannibal Lecter. They're often not that bright, for one thing. And secondly, I don't see that, as far as they're concerned, just something terrible happened and they happen to be, the cause of it. But I don't think that they see themselves as villains.
Yeah. So
So
your
yeah.
films, your early films come from personal experiences. Like, what sort of experiences do you have that kind of inspire these films? And is it difficult then to do like Bring It On, where it's not really your script, and it's like something different? Which do you prefer, like something personal or taking on something new?
Yeah, I always have to find a personal angle for sure. Obviously, when it's your films, it's easier to tap into different experiences or different ideas, and you're leaning into that at any given time. With Bring It On, the interesting thing was that I did have to find that somewhere because I find it really impossible to direct something where I don't feel something, and I would probably say no if I couldn't find that angle at least. With Bring It On, it really became about because when you're doing an R-rated film, you can have terrible people and you can just lean into the laughs by having terrible deaths. You know what I mean? And then it's very fun and it's very grisly and it's gory and it's just a blood fest. When you're dealing with something that's PG-13, I felt very much like I needed to care about the characters, or else I couldn't give them the satisfaction of just, a bloody ending. It had to be a lot more fun. So I looked at things like my inspirations for that one were looking at films like The Bad News Bears, just that, and Booksmart, and this idea of friendship, like a ragtag group of sort of misfits and that's what the Diablos are kind of a ragtag group of misfits that, you're kind of rooting for them, but they're not great at cheer, but you kind of like all of them. And so that way, hopefully the deaths actually mean something, that you actually really like that character and you want them to live versus, oh, it's someone that you really are quite annoyed by and you really hope to, they meet a terrible end.
Yeah, I did like the chemistry between the cast. Thought they did a great job. And your experiences before filmmaking were fashion and law. How does that help with filmmaking? How does that those experiences help?
I still love making clothes. So that is pretty well high on my list of things. So if you're on my Instagram, and I think that's where you found me, you see my cats and my clothes, my sweaters, and all the things I sew. So that is still first and foremost. And so there's a real visual love that I actually have toward, I also did a lot of fine art painting and photography as well. So probably if films feel a little stylized, it's because I do have a fairly strong aesthetic as far as what I like in color and like just how. So that comes across in basically like probably my sweaters too. And the law was actually how I started in film because I started as a producer. I did insurance law, which is not great. So that's a lot of sewage breakages. But I ended up working in entertainment law, and that's how I ended up. And then producing for about 8 years before I started writing and directing. So, yeah, started from the finance side.
Um, you're also a fan of Gothic literature. What are some of the inspirations for you there?
Edgar Allan Poe, you said it right there. It's the first. I think the first book my mom gave me was it was an abridged like kid version of Tales of Mystery and Imagination. So the murders on the Rue Morgue, with the the mom and daughter that basically get decapitated by the orangutans. I was like, oh my god, that's where I was going. So the black cat, and basically was the cask of where he's buried behind the wall. All of those sort of like yeah. So I
Yeah,
I I love the short stories that Edgar Allan Poe. That's where I started, and then of course. Just how many countless readings of Frankenstein, and just I love and yeah, even the yeah, I think I was supposed to like Dracula more than I did. I didn't realize it would just be a whole bunch of like, terrible diaries, quite overwrought. But yes, and of course, then I discovered all of the Lovecraft
mm,
books, and then you're like, oh no, this is where we are. And then you have to put aside like the uncomfortable like modern lens of looking at some of the more racist and xenophobic ideas that he has in there, and sort of getting to the meat of, well, this part's really interesting, but this less so. I really love the books. I don't know if you've read Ellen Datlow is one of the best horror editors that's out there for literature, and she did a book called Lovecraft and His Monsters, and it was basically a lot of modern authors taking on aspects of Lovecraft,
mm.
and there's some wonderful short stories in that collection. So.
I definitely have to like read more, definitely, and because I'm just starting to get into filmmaking, really.
Well, nicely
Yeah,
done. Is this your first film?
yeah, yeah, my
Oh,
first.
congratulations.
Thank you, and I appreciate you watching. Um, because yeah, it's like a personal story of just overcoming injury, really, and yeah, just a group of misfits, as you say, like coming together, and yeah, and it just happens to be in cheerleading, really, and I'm glad that I chose that sport because like the people I've spoke to have been really cool to learn more about something that I wouldn't really know otherwise, and it's definitely growing sport as well. It's gone professional and everything. It's like yeah, um,
Is cheer big in the UK as well, or is
yeah.
it just
I think
starting?
it's like the universities and yeah, like it's growing and a lot of gymnasts tend to go to cheerleading now as well. And like with your film, was there a big fan base there that you were kind of definitely feeling the love for it?
I was actually worried the whole time, because there was such a fervent fan base, and the studio had come up with this idea that they wanted to do sort of like holiday versions of Bring It On. So if Halloween worked, they were going to do like Christmas and Easter, like just all the different holidays. And so I was worried because there was such a specific formula. So I did go back and watch all the Bring It Ons, and just realized, oh wow, this is a franchise that has deep love. And actually, that was one of the things that the studio had told me when we had our like I felt like the final boss, where you're going up the Mortal Kombat thing and you're okay, now I'm getting to talk to this person. And he basically said that the franchise was beloved to Universal, and that essentially I had this sense of like the respect the franchise idea. He said it in the nicest possible way. It was basically the interview in Hunger Games when Katniss goes and meets the Prime Minister. That's how it felt to me. I was like, oh crap, do not muck this one up. So yeah, so I felt the responsibility of staying, like trying to do something fun and horror, but staying within the confines of what it was, and always reminding myself that the it's PG-13, and there's a lot of girls who watch this as well. So I wanted it to be like a gateway horror, like just like something that felt like, like the Simpsons Halloween special every year. So something that was more fun, but still
Yeah,
in keeping with the tone of Cheer.
yeah, yeah. And your inspirations, you did a bit of Sandra Oh inspiration. Um,
Yeah.
is that important to you to kind of like, if you have an audience, like to show who inspired you, kind of thing, and be a gateway to those people as well?
Absolutely, yeah, and actually, that was really important in the Bring It On franchise. Was that we really, when I started looking at behind the scenes of Cheer, I realized how inclusive it actually is. Like in American films, they tend to portray cheerleaders as size zero blondes, that are all a certain type. And when I actually looked at Cheer, like actual Cheer camps with the real kids, they tended to be very inclusive, very body diverse, very just like LGBTQ friendly. Like, so I wanted to make sure that everything that was in the film reflected that sort of
Yeah,
spirit. So no matter what was happening, that spirit and camaraderie that I saw in the Cheer videos was coming across. And so, yeah, absolutely wanting to make sure that, the characters were, again, they can be funny and we can have a lot of fun with them, but that it's still respectful and inclusive, and hopefully for kids to see themselves in this.
yeah. And obviously having that pressure of having like a established audience already, knowing that there's going to be like cheerleaders probably interested. Is that sort of made you think about maybe a dream sort of role, maybe like a Star Wars, for example, where you'd sort of go into a different franchise and kind of do your version of it? Is that kind of, do you have like a dream?
Oh yeah, but I think it's almost untouchable. I mean, honest to God, like Denny Villeneuve's already doing Dune, so I'm like, oh God, I can't
Yeah,
touch that, right? Like, because then I would love to do something with Benny Gesserit, like that.
yeah,
That would be kind of a. Now that I say it, that's like, oh my God, that would be an actual dream. I do, like, again, I'm thinking like, God, I can't even touch the immediate the ones that are being done so well already. You're like, oh, okay, well, I
um,
let's not muck that one up. Like, I love Lord of the Rings, but I don't want to. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
to me, the Peter Jackson ones are the
yeah,
quintessential viewing, and all the other ones after that, I was like, I don't want to be stuck in the, oh yeah, and then there was this version of it. Like, I don't want to be
yeah.
the Wish or the Timu version of what was really awesome.
Well, it's like that new Harry Potter series, for example, but I know
Hmm.
that you were once approached to do like an episode of a series, but I think like someone said that your style would stand out a bit compared to the others, or yeah,
Yeah.
what sort of your experience with that? And I know that you didn't go to film school as well,
Yeah, yeah. I went
so
to I went
it's
to law school. I went to fashion school, and I had my first degrees in English lit. So yeah, no, absolutely not. I've learned everything about film from the industry, and we actually in Canada have some great, like, sort of after film school training programs. So I've been very grateful to be part of that. But yeah, oh, sorry, I lost your question. What was the? Sorry, that was, I went
I
off
think
on a.
like
Okay.
where does your style come from, and what like how does it stand out against the others? If you are gonna like do a series where there's a bunch of different directors,
Yeah.
yeah, it would like
Yeah, I was told early on in my directing from a directing mentor, Kari Skoglund, she said, she looked at my work and she said, there's two types of directors out there. There are auteurs and there's shapeshifters. And she said, I'm a shapeshifter. You can drop me into any show and I can take on that shape. She said, I think you're an auteur, which means that when they hire you, they're hiring you. And so so the challenge is like, again, Bring It On's the furthest I went away from what would be my style of things. Although what we kind of decided with the studio was that, the opening title sequence with all the dance, like with the cheerleader stuff, and the ending cheer sequence, that's theirs, and the middle part was mine. So we
Yeah.
kind of had to, like, there's a slow, gradual, like then and then we go back out. But
Yeah.
I think at this point, what I consider style is probably the fact that I work with a similar team. So, my DP and I have worked together since 2014 or 15 or so. I mean? Like, we've been working together for almost a decade. And my editor and I have been working together since like my first short film, The Cabinet. So Jeannie and I, like, and my composer and I, like, so all of us have basically, so there's a language that we're already dealing with. So I think my style comes from all of us, almost as a collective team, as much as it is from me personally. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I was just
yeah.
going to say as well, you didn't go to film school. I didn't get into film school. I sent the script to the cheerleader, and I think like it was just probably too much. And
Mm,
but you're inspiring because you didn't go that traditional route. Um, so where did your style come from, and where did you get that? Is it just from like watching films, like reading books? Yeah, how did
yeah.
you get that confidence to do
Oh no, the confidence comes much. The imposter syndrome is part of it, by the way. You will not feel like a director until maybe two features in. That's the first
it?
time I actually called myself a director. I had this big, like, every time I went through the airport, I had this, oh, it's terrible days. Like, what do you do for a living? And I took it as, this is your life. It's time to tell them just where it all went wrong, right? And so then just tell them these terrible stories. And it wasn't until I think Evangeline, my second feature, where I was too tired to argue, and I got to Reykjavik, and I think they asked what I did, and I just said I'm a director, and I was like, it startled me too. I was like, oh God, that I said that out loud. I guess it's true. Yeah, absolutely. It's working on. I guess it's just being on set and working, and you kind of find. I feel like I just found the style that I had in the beginning. I think a lot of filmmakers are given almost like too early of advice to be like, find your style, find your brand, do whatever it is. But really, we should be, if you're an artist and you're trying to tell stories, you're trying to do it in the way that works for you. And at some point, maybe you fall into a style and people can start to pick things out. But I don't know that it's better to lean into that yet when you're still figuring things out. So
Yeah.
yes, there's also things that you love. Of course, you're going to emulate. Like, we're always, no matter how much you think you're stealing, like, okay, I love this from Kubrick, I love this from, like, you're sort of taking things, but once it goes through and gets filtered through your cast, your team, your everything, it's not going to be that. It might have been your inspiration, but that's not going to be the thing. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I am a huge film nerd, so I do watch a lot, and I'm sure you do as well. So a lot of it is just saying, "Oh, I love that shot," or just paying attention to things. I think the biggest thing that I learned as a director and as a writer is just transitions. Like, going
Yeah.
from one scene to another, really thinking about how your film is actually made in those ins and outs, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
how you're getting in from one scene to the next without relying on the Seinfeld, like, up the, dun, 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 dun. You don't want, you know what I mean? Like, that's very TV to do it.
Yeah.
But as a feature and as a short filmmaker, how do we get from one place to another in a way that feels elegant and deliberate? So
Yeah.
everything I'm always thinking about is those transitions, and I think that's something that sometimes we get so caught up in the meat of the story that or the scene, you forget, how did I get into it and how to get out of it.
Does
So
that change for you from a short film to a feature film? Because short film, maybe the pacing has to be a bit quicker, or is
mhm.
that just the same?
uh, I think you lean into it more in a feature for sure, because all of a sudden those transitions sometimes become spacers. If you have scene after scene of just meaty dialogue, it's really challenging. It's not well paced. So as a again, the longer it gets, the more you actually have to think about, okay, we need a breather here. We need is this comic relief? Is this something, like, is this going to add tension to it? You're all of a sudden really thinking about how that brands the whole film, if it makes any sense. Like, that,
Yeah.
whatever you choose as a interstitial of sorts, like whatever your B-roll is, should be part of the storytelling, but also really fits with the style of what your film actually is.
Yeah, you spoke about like just becoming a director, and you've worked with some great actors, some big actors as well. And they'll come to you and they'll ask you questions, and you have to have the answers, really, don't you? And I just wanted to ask about like Missy Pyle, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
She
Yeah.
was in Bring It On, and
Yes.
she's a big actor like, in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory,
Yes.
which I
I
owned
loved
on
her role.
DVD.
Yeah.
And that transitions into like physical media. And I just
Hmm.
want to ask you like, what's your opinion on like the importance of physical media, and do you think that it's important to keep that alive?
As far as, like going out and watching films on, like, you mean like where, like
Yeah,
when you
like
say physical media?
buying DVDs. I know
Hmm.
that you're a fan of like rather going into the cinema and watching it and the theaters rather than like streaming it at home.
Yes. Yes.
What's your opinions on all of that?
Oh, all of it, all of it, all of it. I'm analog. So, there is something, what I thought was so amazing about being at Poa just now, like
Yeah,
in Brazil, was the fact that the audience is like, there's a real culture of going out and watching things together. Like every time I loathe sitting through my own films, by the way, just as a thought, because I can see every mistake and every choice I made, and but there is something about hearing an audience respond to something, a choice that you made, that's really satisfying. Whether it's like yeah, just the fact that you're having a dialogue, and there's nothing better than going to see a comedy or a horror or something with other people. Like you
yeah,
share these moments where I don't think there's anything like it. I went to see the new Mission Impossible, and do you remember that scene where it's really dark and he's rolling around and God knows what's happening. No one can see, right? So everyone's leaning in, going, "What's happening? Like, what? Where is he? Like, it's just dark." And he's like, and then the woman next to me is like, she could not figure out what's happening. All of a sudden, they get this ADR line from Tom Cruise, and he says, "Torpedo tunnel," and everyone leans back, and the woman turns to me and she goes, "Torpedo tunnel." Like now we all know what's happening, so we can all lean back like, "It's a torpedo tunnel." That's good. So you get
yeah,
these amazing moments where the whole audience is like, "Oh, torpedo tunnel." You wouldn't get that at home, like, you know what I mean? There was something
yeah.
like a shared, I don't know, like a shared relief, shared camaraderie. Like we were in the same film together. And I think that
Yeah.
those moments always stand out for me where there's a gasp and we're all like, oh, and then you turn to the person next to you and it's just this lovely little moment, where you've shared. And I don't get that from the couch. I mean, you have to
Mm,
watch what you can. And of course, physical DVDs. And I love the audio. I love the featurettes. I love all the extra stuff
yeah.
that they do. And to this day, I still have all my Blu-rays and DVDs because they'll pry those from my cold dead hands. In fact, I just ordered a few because at this point, did you notice that the films that you want to see, especially the older ones, you're going to spend more to get it off, like to rent it from Amazon or Apple or whatever it is, to own
Mm,
it. And they can change their minds, and you don't have the thing. I want the thing.
yeah, yeah,
I want you like this thing, like I want the Criterion thing with the poster, and
yeah.
I want the package. So yes, I'm that person too.
And Charlie and the Chocolate Factory had a lot of features on there, like games, like sing along stuff. Just a
Oh,
packed DVD. The Tim Burton one.
okay,
Yeah, it
that's good to
was.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
Missy was a absolute angel, by the way. So
Mm,
sometimes, like, I was a little scared too. Like when you're dealing with someone that you actually really like, you're like, oh God. But she was just a delight. I'm lucky as again as a probably a fellow female director person that she didn't mind me being at her wardrobe fitting, right? So like,
mm,
it might be a bit creepy if I was a guy, but like, so I could actually go there. It was my first time to actually sit down and talk with her about the different outfits, basically because we were building a character together. So
mm,
I'd leaned into the principal role, Principal Simmons, and there were things that she had, basically, and she was so not vain about, for some actors, the idea that I was going to go right in with a fisheye lens, it's like, and I could explain to her what I was going to do. And she was like, oh, like, just do it. You know what I mean? She didn't
yeah,
have that. There's sometimes, especially with actresses, they want to look a certain way, but Missy is just so comedic first, and she's all
mm,
about her craft first. So if it meant making her look really like quite extreme and ridiculous, she was like, "Go at it!" Like, I have a rubbery face, and I'm totally good with that. And I thought, oh, but you need that buy-in to, because can
yeah.
you imagine asking an actor who's quite self-conscious, and I can only be filmed from, like, I've heard horror stories from friends where I can only be filmed from this angle, and it's like, okay, now I've, and it's funny because I got tapped to, and I didn't do it. I was supposed to direct an MOW, like those straight to movie, straight to TV, Lifetime Hallmark movies. And the actor, basically what you're saying is that even though they wanted something very stylized from me, they said, yeah, but when we get to, that lead, you got to make her look good. So can you imagine you're going along and all of a sudden you have to go into soft focus Elizabeth Taylor cam? Like, I don't know how to do that, right? Like, it's just weird. Like, all of a sudden she needs a fuzzy filter, like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
throws off your story in some ways. So when you find an actor like Missy who is so open to basically being, I'm going to be, if you're stylized, I'm totally cool with you, like, again, shoving a camera way too close and it's going to be a little bit extreme. And she wasn't vain about the, oh no, my face is going to look weird.
Yeah. And you spoke about like being female, like you're the first female Bring It On director as well.
Yeah.
That kind of surprised me a bit. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like what was that like? And obviously, do you have any advice for filmmakers as well? With given maybe that they don't get to film school or something, with your experience, what you've done, award-winning films, what advice would you give to those people that maybe they're doing like a law degree as well and they don't feel it's the right thing? Is there any like
Yeah.
advice that you'd give?
Yeah, I think that we can all only be authentic to ourselves. So, um, I know it feels like film school is everything, but it really isn't. Like, I feel like you just going out there and you've made a short film. Like, there's people in film school who don't get to make a short film. I could see you have close to 1,000 views, like 1,000 people have watched your film and have enjoyed it. So that's more than a lot of people who've gone through film school may get. So just keep at it. I just feel like you will keep finding stories that resonate for you, and it's the practice. I always notice that when for directors, we are the people who get the least practice on a film set. If you're a film, like say you're a gaffer or you're a script supervisor, you probably can work almost 300 days of the year depending on what show goes. You go from show to show to show. You get really good at what you're doing. For a director, you are lucky to get on set once every year if you're lucky. By the time you go through post and blah blah blah. Like, just a chance to practice your craft is very hard. So you're not actually in a worse spot if you haven't done it compared to, what I mean? Like, most directors don't get that shot. So it's just practice. And, it, even if it means doing smaller things, little short things, just to keep and for every single thing, just challenge yourself to do something a little harder. I don't like to repeat myself either. So I don't love doing things unless I feel like, oh, I can do something interesting with it. So
One of the questions I always ask is like, if there was a movie made about your life, what would it be called, and who would play you in that role?
wow. Maybe I was gonna have this on my epitaph, like disgusted but not surprised. That's how I treated a lot of things. And me, I don't know. I'm like, how many Asian actors are out there that, like, because part of me is like, what if it's Charlene Yee? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
she does that great turtle impression. You know what I mean? Like, that's my inner me. Like, I'm kind of a dork, so I'm like, oh, that. But probably
yeah.
it's
Well,
like,
would it
yeah.
be? Would it be a comedy? Would it be like?
I think so. It'd be probably like, I don't think you could do me and not have it sort of a kind of like a book smart comedy. Like, I think that would basically be it. It would, and I'm planning on writing one of those, by the way. I'd love to do one because I feel like a of age. Yeah, it would definitely be. Yeah, some sort of, maybe Lucy Liu. I don't know, but anyway, I'm
Mm.
trying to think who would play me. But it would definitely have to be a dark comedy. It would not be super serious. I'm not super serious, so.
Did you say you're actually like making that and thinking
Oh, I
about?
have to write it. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
so I've got a couple of things right now that I'm like, after, like, I have to work on the marketing of my new feature, Armageddon Road.
Mm,
But apart from that, I also have to start thinking about what do I want to do next? Because, you know what I mean? Like, where do you want to go? There's a bunch of scripts, a bunch of script ideas, what do they call it? Numerous projects in various stages of development. That's what you say as a director, by the way. If people ask you, well, how are you doing, Ethan? And you will say, I have numerous projects in various stages of production and
Okay, that's
development.
good. Yeah, I
Yes,
definitely need
that's true.
to learn the lingo.
Yeah, that's the lingo. That works for everything. And whenever you see something that you don't, you know what I mean? Like you have to. That's the language, and everyone's like, "Oh wow!" Like numerous projects, various stages
Yeah.
of development. It means that things are happening. Nothing is happening. Everything is happening. You know, like it's yeah.
You've worked with some great actors, but do you ever see yourself like being in front of the camera as well, in the like acting as well?
Oh no, I'm terrible. I've already been fired. I think twice from the CBC, so it's all good. Like it's our version of the BBC, and I was a on-air host for all of 4 episodes, and I was dreadful. So I never want to do that again. Like
Okay.
the whole nation was watching me, and I was just face plant. I do not need to see that again. So no, thank you. You're brave. You did you, but I am no,
Yeah,
nope. I'm yeah.
it was a bit like Tarantino, the way he just puts himself in there, and
No, but you at least you have a charming bit, and also you have a hilarious reveal. I think that's all worth it. Whereas I would just be like terrible. Like I'd be the one that feels like, oh, why is she in it? Like that's so bad.
um, yeah. So some of the comedy that I did, it just came from kind of having that insecurity, a bit of like, is the serious scenes going to be taken seriously? So I
Hmm.
kind of leaned into the comedy a bit. So with you being a comedy fan, like, you don't want to combine the two, or do you see yourself actually one day making like a horror comedy?
It is such a fine line because I love the Coen brothers. They're probably my favorite
Mm,
filmmaking duo. And so that idea of like the fact that everything they have is sort of grotesque comedy, that's where I probably would sit. Like the
mm,
slight like, is it funny? Am I supposed to laugh? Oh, that wasn't oh. You know, like that's oh. So I do I think that the type of I don't think that I could do broad like you eventually you surprised me with your film because you went comedy like you know what I mean like I was thinking oh it's pretty serious and then I was like oh it's not and then you know
mm,
then you have permission to like did you set out to make a comedy too or did it just find its funny
mm.
bone.
I think the reveal was definitely already in there. Um, but I think the first shoot that I did was that kidnapping bit,
Hmm.
and like the cinematographer was also recording the sound, and his mics broke, and like the sound was a bit. Basically, I got the footage back, and I was just like, I'm not sure on this, and so that's where I kind of leaned into the comedy later on
Hmm.
to kind of save it. But I mean, my question for you as well is like, on your first project, was there any of these things where like it was out of your hands that kind of like the mics broke or something, and you kind of had to adapt it a bit?
Yeah, my first feature was the cabinet, and not feature. My first short film was the cabinet, and it was the first time I directed. So I did not know what I was doing at all. It was like, and things went wrong regularly. I had a very, but I think what saved me was that I had a very experienced team. So my
Hmm.
cinematographer was really really experienced, and I think the first time I handed him this 500 shot list sort of thing, he looked at me sadly and he put it to the side and he said, "What are we actually going to shoot?" And I was like, that's not right. So,
Yeah.
so I learned a lot from that's another thing I would give as an, when you're first starting and you haven't been to film school, I'd say get like, obviously work with your friends, work with people that you can afford and can hire, but also try to work with people that are kind of above your pay grade, if that makes any sense. They will teach you
Hmm.
things as you go along. And
Yeah.
also, I cannot under basically with it under recommend the importance of having a good script or directing mentor, like somebody who is actually you were going with all of your questions, like, and making them watch your rough cuts and basically giving you some feedback. So
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I have had a lot of really great directing mentors, and one of them lives in town. Rachel Tallalee. She directed Tank Girl and produced all the John Water films and Hairspray, and she was one of my first directing mentors off my first feature. We met, and now she's a good friend, but she's still the person that when I'm in when I'm in the weeds, she always helps me through that. Like, if it weren't for her, I don't know that I would have had the right expectations for Bring It On, because she just did the new Good Omens, right? So that, like, she's done Sherlock, she's done all of those shows, and so she works in the UK a lot. Like, I think she did Sherlock and Doctor Who and that. So she knows what she's doing, and she's also American, and she worked through the studio system. So even hearing things like, this is how you work with the executives, this is how you deal with the notes that you're going to get from studios, like, knowing her experience made it softer for me, or else I would have thought I was a complete screw up. Like, just to know that even she gets notes like this, that it makes you feel like, oh, okay, this is part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you watch like behind the scenes of some films, and even like the top directors are kind of making mistakes or having things that they have to overcome, sort of these little bumps in the road, and it's kind of like everyone's kind of similar in that way. And um, the next short film I want to do is horror as well.
Okay,
So I was just
excellent.
like really wanting to understand, like, obviously I've already asked that question, but how you achieve that unsettling tone. And one of my questions as well was, when you're writing a script, do you have to kind of take in the budget into consideration? Because that's something that with a cheerleader, it was like too ambitious, I think, for like a first time filmmaker. The next one, I'm kind of like making sure that it's all realistic. And yeah, like, what are your experiences with, because you funded your own films as well?
Yes.
Sort of writing the script, but then saying, oh, I probably might not be able to do that, and kind of changing it.
Yeah, there's always, what I've discovered is that no matter how much money you have, it's never enough. So you will always be under budget. There has never been a single production where I was like, yes, this is comfortable. It's always, even Bring It On had a $9 million budget. I felt like, but it needed 14. Do you know what I mean? So every single,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what it is. You think 9 million, wow, I'm going to do all these things. There was not enough money to do the things that the studio wanted. So you're always behind the eight ball. Like, I think that as a writer, when you're writing your scripts, yes, you're thinking about that, but there's that delicate balance between cutting yourself short, and like, okay, this is the cheapest thing. It's going to be a room with two people. You know what I mean? And because I can afford this, versus like, well, I'm going to write the best script I can, and then, like, maybe not a crowd of, this many people. Like, you could see for yours too. It's like, uh, getting crowds in there, getting like a
Yeah.
cheer group, like how many, and choreography, all those things are expensive things. And I'm glad you did it. It's funny because even on Bring It On, we had 9 million, and they're like, we have 200 extras. It didn't even come close to filling the stadium. Do you know what I mean? In your head, you're like, I have
Yeah.
200 people. And then they get there and the stadium's way bigger, and it looks like there's 4 people sitting, like, oh no. And so then it's almost like, as soon as you see that, you have to lean into what, it's almost like you're always problem solving as a director, right? So as soon as I see that, then it's like, oh, then I have to lean into the fact that it's got empty state, like, seats. So now
Yeah.
I'm going to group them in a way that I can either spread them so it looks like there's more people, or I can actually make it look like, oh, crickets, like, and lean into that, and it's funny. So you
Yeah. Yeah.
you kind of have your choices that once that happens. So
Yeah. And like, all the actors on my film did it for free as well.
mhm.
Like, just because I think I could offer them clips for their show reel to like build their experience. And so trying to tell them that they're going to be like an audience member was the stuff I had to
Yeah,
write, like sort of dialogue for them, and like having to kind of, yeah, add more scenes to add like extras in there. And
mhm.
yeah, it's cool to hear that you actually got Bring It On as well, because you achieved a film on like a much lower budget than what people expected that it was going to cost. So
Yeah, yeah,
is that correct? That basically that was one of the reasons why you're attractive to even Bring It On, which has a lot of money, but obviously they know you can work with,
yeah.
limited.
I think, I don't know that that's why they hired me, but again, I'm budget conscious, but they also knew that I was a filmmaker that was used to working with these sorts of, like, basically the catering budget on Bring It On funds one of my features, right? So that's the perspective that I had. But no, I think that ultimately they said that what they were interested in, it's really interesting, is that because I'm an auteur and not an episodic director, they said they wanted something that might feel like, that would make the film franchise feel a little bit more elevated, is what they said.
Yeah.
That's what they told me anyway. So I have no idea if that was a lie. But they did say that they wanted maybe an auteur feeling to it rather than something that feels straight to video.
Mm. Yeah.
So that, yeah, and it did help the fact that I was able to do. I think they looked at my Curse of Willow song and they were like, "How
Yeah.
did you do this?" And I said, "Well, one, I chose to shoot it in black and white, but it's basically a girl in a warehouse, so it's very different than." And I think that's when they were like, "It's really depressing, not depressing, but it's got a really foreboding sort of feeling to
Mhm.
it." And yeah, I would say that for them, they were just worried that I might not be very funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I think your films and your personality, you've had that a lot where it doesn't really, it's unexpected a bit,
Yeah.
which I think
I'm
is
like,
a
oh,
compliment to be fair. But
yeah. Well, no, I went to a reception once and they're like, "You're off brand." And I was like, "Well, what did you want?" And they were like, "Well, I don't know. Like you have like, yeah, I guess I'm supposed to be like maybe a lot more somber in real
yeah,
life." And it's like they're not expecting me, I think, most of the time. Although I think with Armageddon Road, I think I'm closer to what that actually
yeah,
is. So, because it's a
yeah. I
little
did
lighter.
want to sort of end with that film, the latest feature film.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, how was it? What were the differences from this one to your first feature film? Like, what's the journey been like to get to this point?
Bring It On really helped because I feel like I became a more seasoned director because of it. When you're working all of a sudden in a really, like I had three cameras, for Bring It On at any given time. So I was behind a wall of monitors. And I think that when you're all of a sudden asked to block nine people, and constantly like, what is that actually going to be? It really, I think just ups my confidence as a director. I think that, and also I think we all need this, even though we say we don't need this, whether it's film school or otherwise. It feels like you got accredited somehow. Like if the studio picked me to do something, I feel like all of a sudden I'm legit. Like the imposter
Yeah,
syndrome goes less. So I look back at my first feature, Stained, and I think, wow, that was someone who was just scared shitless. Sorry, should not have said that, but you know what I mean. Like I was not. I think that everything, I didn't even know what I wasn't knowing. Whereas
mm,
by Armageddon Road, we did some really innovative things because, again, I couldn't have afforded this film normally. It would have been like, because I have car chases with like basically period cars. I did it all on miniature, you know what I mean? And I used the volume wall. I used new technology and very old technology. And I don't know that I could have had the ability to do that if again, this film, I think Armageddon Road at this point feels like I'm now having fun as a filmmaker, whereas on my earlier ones, I was just terrified that I was doing it all wrong. So I
yeah,
think that, so I think that's the difference. Whereas now I feel like, also I feel not just more confident in my voice as a storyteller, but I would say that I just realize you can't please everyone. You go into Letterbox and there's going to be people who love your films. There's people who are going to say, I didn't get it, or people who hated it, and it's going to be a range, but that doesn't make what you're doing less legitimate, if that makes any sense.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, when there's a personal reason behind what you're doing, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No.
Like, so yeah. Where can we see the film when it's released?
Yeah, I think right now I just got a Canadian and North American distributor, so we're just in the midst of coming up with that. And because it's the world premiere at a film festival, I think I have to give it a little bit to go around, and then
Mm,
we'll start thinking about streaming. And but I am going to do theatrical because I am so, like we
yeah.
talked about, I am analog, so I want to do events where we have red carpets, we have the film screening, we have Q&A after, and we can have a disco boogie party after, and it'll be a fun 70s sort of thing.
That sounds so cool. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And thanks again for your time.
Thank
It's been
you.
amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time too, and congratulations on your short film as well. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.